Hi, what's up guys, it's your favorite Beidou supremacist Ara Ara enthusiast, Strife here. Thanks for 4K subs. Sorry I haven't posted a voice video in a while, it's currently midterm season right now and I'm a bit busy. Anyways, so recently my Ara Ara teleport video has been blowing up quite a bit and I've been receiving a ton of comments on how some of you need/want Jean to complete your full Ara Ara team. Well, if you're aiming to get spooked by her or already have her, you're in luck. In this video, I'll show you the viability of the Beidou, Ningguang, Jean, and Lisa team. Spoilers, they don't synergize super well, but it's still visually appealing and happens to be my favorite team, and you know very well that I will try my best to make this work. We'll briefly be going over their talents and builds along with their roles on the team. Starting with Jean, she'll act as a team's sole healer and auxiliary debuffer for our main DPS Beidou. Fun fact, she was my first 5-star in both beta and full release. Here's some early footage, and yes, that's me screaming in the background.
Shit. Oh, wait, 5-star! Watch me what I got 5-star last time. Okay, thank you. I can't see though. Oh, it's Jean! It's Jean!
For artifacts, I'm running a 4-piece Viridescent set for the increased animal and swirl damage, along with the 40% resistance down for whatever element is swirled, and in this case it will be Electro. Moving over to her talents, her auto attacks have a 50% chance to heal all party members based on Jean's attack. This is enabled by her first passive. Next, both her E and her Q are capable of swirling, so this will be put to good use when reducing enemies' elemental resistance. She's no sucrose when it comes to sustain animal, but hey, she's still one of the best girls. Starting with her E, since my Jean is C1, she has a stronger suck when held down to charge it. This will be useful for grouping up enemies in case they try to escape Beidou's E hit axis. If you're unfamiliar with this ability, basically charging Jean's E will pull in nearby enemies and objects before launching them, all while dealing extra damage. It is kinda similar to Animal Traveler's charged E, and this is on a 6-second cooldown. Jean's Q is a giant animal AoE field burst heal that scales off her attack and continuously recovers HP of the selected party member over time. Not only will this keep the Ara Ara team alive, but this also has the ability to cleanse any elemental status on your characters. This will prevent you from being overloaded or frozen, etc. This is on an 80 cost, so getting it back is not an easy task, unless... For weapons, I would recommend using Sacrificial Sword or Aquila Favonia. Sac Sword will give your E a chance to reload, and that combined with its secondary stat of energy recharge will enable Jean to spam her Q. Overall, it will make Jean a lot more consistent. And for Aquila Favonia, its high base attack will help her healing. Plus, it's a really nice looking sword, and its counterattack ability is really cool. So a quick recap is, we'll be using Jean as a healer and debuffer to support Beidou as our main DPS. Next is everyone's favorite librarian mom, Lisa. She'll be the other auxiliary debuffer alongside Jean. For artifacts, I'm running a 4-piece Thundering Fury set on her, mainly for its E cooldown reduction when inflicting electro-relevant elemental reactions, since Lisa's charge E has one of the longest cooldowns in the game. That, and since Lisa's the only character with elemental mastery as her ascension stat, so why not focus on her strengths with the increased damage towards electro-elemental reactions. Moving on to her talents, her autos will be mainly used to inflict elemental status onto enemies. Since her charge has a decently large hitbox, it will also be useful for reducing her E cooldown. Next, her E will be used for the same purpose for inflicting electro onto a bunch of enemies, for Jean to swirl resist down them. I will be mainly using it in its charge state for our demonstrations, since it has a large AoE, and this is on a long 16-second cooldown. Finally, her Q is an AoE electro field that pushes enemies outside of it, and thanks to her second passive, it will reduce enemies' defense by 15% for 10 seconds. This actually synergizes a little with Jean's Q, as enemies leaving her field take extra damage, and since Lisa's pushes them with Electro, they'll get swirled out of the circles. And unfortunately, this is also on an 80 cost as well, so the uptime will be limited. For weapons, definitely Sacrificial Fragments, because her long cooldown on her E. Also, since Lisa's charge E has a large AoE, and a potential to hit multiple enemies, the chances of Sacrificial Fragments' abilities reloading are increased. So to recap, Lisa will be our other debuffer to help Jean swirl electro resist down onto enemies. Moving on to Geomommy Ningguang, she will be our team's pseudo tank and sub DPS. Starting with artifacts, I'm running a 2-piece Archaic Petra and 2-piece Noblesse set to maximize her Q damage. You can use a 4-piece Archaic Petra to make her your third support, but I thought that was a bit overkill and wasted potential since her damage output is ridiculous. Moving on to her talents, Ningguang's autos will be really good for the team's survivability as it can make limitless shields on demand. Her E creates a planar shield that can block incoming projectiles, and its activation also staggers and knocks back enemies. This will be mainly used to protect your team from archers as you deal with close quarter enemies. And this is on a 12-second cooldown, but thanks to her second constellation, it can reset the cooldown every 6 seconds if the wall is broken. Next, her Q is quite literally a cluster missile launcher, and it deals a ton of damage. And when you have your E up prior to using her Q, it'll collapse her wall and launch even more rock missiles. Luckily this is on a 40 cost, so it's very easy to spam. For weapons, I think the Battle Pass Catalyst works wonders on her, as it allows her to use her Q and E to boost her auto attack damage and vice versa. The fact that it works in both ways makes it extremely useful. To sum it up, Ningguang is going to serve as our shield maker and wall tank, while providing survivability and extra damage to your team. And finally, our pirate queen herself, Beidou, will be our main DPS and hybrid tank. I've gone over my build multiple times already in previous videos, but to recap it, I'm running a 2-piece Gambler and 2-piece Thundering Fury set to maximize her counterattack's damage. For talents, if you're a subscriber, chances are that you're already familiar with them. But for those of you who aren't, her autos are a standard slow claymore hit and also has the ability to hit up to 5 times. I also have a video on how to get her charge attack to use up her entire stamina bar, links in the description. Her E is a counter attack that can dish out giant damage and also erects a shield to protect yourself when countering. There are a lot more mechanics to this skill, but I want to keep it brief here. If you'd like to know everything about it, I'd recommend checking out this video right here, where I teach you how to counter every single enemy in the game in version 1.1 and 1.0. Links in the description. And finally, her Q at C1 creates a shield alongside with a small AoE of continuous electro damage that rotates around you. Since minus C6, her Q lowers enemies' electro resistance by 15%. For weapons, since she's going to be our main DPS, it's pretty flexible what you can equip onto Beidou. I recommend the Battle Pass Claymore if you want crit rate, Black Cliff Slasher for crit damage, Rain Slasher for electro affected damage, Lithic Blade for its Ethic bonus, Unforged for increased shield strength and damage, and Wallet's Gravestone, as it basically is Black Cliff Slasher on steroids. For Black Cliff and Gravestone, they both have requirements where you need to either kill or lower an enemy to at least 30% to have their extra attacks applied respectively. But this also applies to animals as well, so you can slap a boar or a bird with these swords and it'll proc the abilities. Alright, now that we know how the characters play and how their roles will be, you might be asking, how well does this work together? Short answer, they don't. But I'll try my best to show you the optimal way to do so. But before that, why doesn't it work? Some small issues like Ningguang's wall can prevent Beidou from countering, Jin and Ningguang's elements don't combine at all, and Ningguang with any of their elements for that matter. Lisa's Q pushes enemies outside of Beidou's E range. Beidou and Lisa's elemental resonance gets little to no mileage since swirl and crystallization don't count for it, and 3 out of 4 members' bursts are on 80 costs, which makes the team very limited in its optimal state. Anyways, well, if you kept up with the analysis portion of this video, this team is basically built around allowing Beidou to make enemies disappear faster than my wallet will when Rosaria comes out. 6/6 video coming soon. So the general game plan is to first have Lisa inflict Electro onto as many enemies as possible, whether that be with her autos or her skill. Then have Jean round them up with her E and resistance down them. And then switch to Beidou and wait for them to attack so you can counter them into the Shadow Realm. If you absolutely hate taking damage like me, and have OCD if your HP isn't at 100% at all times, set up Ningguang's wall to protect Beidou from ranged attacks as you wait to counter the resistance down enemies. I should also mention that Ningguang's wall will also protect Lisa while she charges her E from being interrupted by incoming attacks. And if an enemy somehow survives Beidou's counter, you can use Ningguang to clean up, as their attack potential is insane. Throughout the video so far, I've been tossing around words like resistance reduction, so let's add it up, shall we? We got 40% from Jean's 4-set Viridescent, plus 15% from Beidou's 6 Constellation, and 15% defense down from Lisa's Q and passive. If done correctly, your enemies will have 55% reduced resistance to Electro and 15% defense down as well. Beidou's Electro damage should be bolstered by this a ton. Now, if your Qs are up, first pop Jean's burst, then switch to Lisa and pop hers right on top of Jean's. Switch back to Jean and round up the enemies and E them back into the Electro Wind Circle of Death. Then switch to Beidou and activate her burst and wait to counter. If they somehow survive that, lay Hellfire onto them with Ningguang's missile launcher. This works best against mobs, but can also work against bosses too. To close off, here are a few demonstrations in the overworld of how this team performs. Enjoy.
させないと思う。やみつきにならん剣に誓う。よく見ておけ。さようなら。
Alright, you made it to the end of the video. Hopefully you got something from this. And if you're planning to get Jean, good luck. I know it's hard to get a non-limited 5-star considering Genshin literally has more limited 5 stars than non now. Who thought that was a good idea? And if you run this team too, let me know in the comments how you play them. And also, let me know if you plan to run this team after watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That's about it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.